Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, two game changers in focus. First up, we're in conversation with Swatantra Talim. On the other side of a break, the Skoll Foundation in focus. Exposure to too much technology is often blamed for the lack of concentration skills among school children, but not enough exposure to technology and modern concepts. Perhaps one of the reasons why children, particularly in rural areas, find it more hard than others to absorb advanced concepts when it comes to subjects like maths, science and technology. I travelled to Lucknow and caught up with Swatantra Talim, an NGO that works in the space of after classes training and education for school children in rural areas. Listen. Riddhi, thanks very much for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow and this game changer, which really is talking about what you are doing as a part of Swatantra Talim and how you're trying to change the models that really exist as far as education in India is concerned. So it's exciting to be talking to you here in Lucknow, understanding your model and what you're doing. Let's start by talking about your personal journey, because that is as interesting as the model of Swatantra Talim as well. You had absolutely nothing to do with the field of education, but you just felt that something more needs to be done. And that you wanted to work with children in some sense. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so my journey started way back into the school. When I was in school, I used to volunteer for, there was a after school learning center working in our own school. So I used to volunteer there, teach children there. So it all started from there. When I went into the college, I continued volunteering for different organizations. Sure. In my work life also, I continued that. But one point of time, I was myself not very satisfied with the education system of my own education, I would say, because I had a personal story linked to that I met with an accident and my hands were not working. So I couldn't write my papers, so couldn't score well because of that, in spite of knowing a lot of things. So that was one lacuna which I found in the education system, that even after you have the capabilities, you're not able to achieve as far as the achieve success word is concerned.
Sure.
So I always wanted to do something for it. What was not really very sure of at that point of time. But my volunteering in different organizations actually gave me a spark that I need to do something for the children in the rural areas.
Okay, so how did you answer the what then?
So for what, I left my corporate job and I started working with different NGOs. While visiting different villages, interacting with a lot of parents and children, their aspect of education, how they look at education was, so one question kept on coming again and again was that there are some parents who send their children to school, but still they don't know what will happen with them later on when they come out of the system.
Sure.
And there are other set of children, parents who say, or the children say that we don't want to go to school, there's no need. By what benefit would it give us? So from that whole thing, which started that, okay, that's the what which we need to answer. And if that is answered, a lot of things would change in itself.
Okay. So Swatantra Talim, from what I understand, the model is an after-school model where you're essentially giving the children the flexibility and the independence to decide how they want to learn and what they want to learn. Correct. Just run us through that. Yeah.
So Swatantra Talim came from the idea that freedom in education. So if the children should not only just study books or mug up concepts. That's not the whole, basically the knowledge base would not, the knowledge base would not expand from that level. So what we did was that we wanted to give children a space where they themselves explore, experiment with things and come up with their own concepts and their own knowledge bases. So like I would like to run through an simple example from where our whole model right now has come up with. Children were doing a lot of experimentations with the sources of energy. Like they were making solar cookers, they were making windmills, models of all those things. And through that, some children came up with the question that if these sources are so powerful, why can't they help us in our daily lives? So we said that what's that particular thing you're looking at? So they came up with the thing that there's no electricity in the village at that point of time. And our mothers have to walk some 5 to 7 to 8 kilometers to charge only a mobile phone because their fathers were working in the cities. So we said, okay, why don't you look up for some answers? So they said, how do we look up for answers? So we gave them some books to read, some videos to see, and then they bought some material from the market, local market over there, and they made a solar mobile charger which was up and running in the village. So which was a real excitement factor in the whole village came up, that okay, something which they study, it can make something useful for their own lives. So that was literally a mind change for the whole society, and a lot of community members came, saw, they used it, and they said that okay, fine, this kind of education works for us, so we should definitely send our children for this kind of education. So the kind of education was defined at that point of time.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest challenges perhaps that you faced ever since you've started? You started in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So what have the past couple of years been like? What have some of the biggest challenges been? And how have you used that, and what have your learnings been from that?
So I think the biggest challenge was manpower, because there are not a lot of people who want to go and work in the villages. So if I and Rahul, who's my co-founder, if both of us only keep going and working, we'll not be able to expand the base to different other places. And our whole idea was that we want to make the village as a center of innovation. So to expand that, we need more people who are in sync with the idea. So that was one biggest challenge which we had been facing. But in the recent years, we haven't come across some people who are willing to join us, who are actually now we're in the stage of expanding a team. So now we are taking the idea to different places also.
Okay, that's interesting that you say that, because we very recently did a panel talking about CSR and what CSR for companies mean. And one of the key takeaways of that panel was that you have to excite young people to join and work for the non-profit organizations in the non-profit sector. What perhaps is the role of the government maybe when it comes to encouraging more young people to come up with more innovative ideas and join companies and sectors and organizations like yours?
So I think recently the government is coming up with ideas like in education sector, like Atal Innovation Labs and all into schools. So those things are coming up, but still they are limited to, I think, the major cities, not into the rural areas a lot. Okay. So still we have to buck up with the education system and the ideas and the innovations coming up in the rural areas. We need to actually do a lot of things over there.
Okay, so how are you perhaps solving the people problem? When you're going into the villages and when more people are seeing the work you're doing, and you have been getting a fair bit of press coverage, has that perhaps opened up people's minds that there can be a career in sectors like yours?
Yeah, so like I said, that recently we are getting some people who are into colleges like Azim Premji and other colleges. From there we're getting interns, and those interns are turning up into probably joining the sector itself. Sure. And apart from that, one major thing which we did was that we thought, why to get people from outside? Why can't we have people from the village itself, because they themselves have a lot of traditional knowledge. So if the children who are studying, they have the conceptual knowledge, the people have the traditional knowledge. If they both join together, they themselves can be their own team members, our team members. So we have employed a lot of children and people from the village itself who are working in the after-school learning centers.
Okay, so I want to take a slightly bigger picture, a bigger view really, in terms of your work that you're doing in the education space. Now, India is a country where a majority of the schools are still in the government space, are still run by the government. That said, the quality of education leaves a lot to be desired. If you look at the PISA rankings and the PISA score that ranks countries globally on the quality of the education and the ability of students to be able to read their texts, etc., India has been ranking very poorly on that. How do models like yours integrate into the formal education system to ensure that the kind of changes that we need at the grassroots are being seen?
Yeah, so for that, after experimenting for some years, we have recently collaborated with the UP government, and we are working in 5 government schools. Sure. Near Lucknow. So what we thought of that, whatever experimentations we are doing in our after-school learning centers, we do a lot of hands-on experimentations of different concepts and different subjects from the local material. Okay. So we have packaged all those things into a dabba, which we have named the Khosh Dabba, and that dabba we are employing into the government schools, and children work with those experimentations. They play a lot of games with the material which is locally available. Like for example, there's a simple byproduct like a setha of agriculture. Okay. Through that we teach concept of tens, which is there in mathematics. And when we go to the government school, we did it with children. The teachers got an idea about that concept, and they themselves made a lot of, they got from their children's parents, and they made setha bundles, and then now they are using it in the schools. So these are small changes which are coming up because of collaborating with the government, and now it can reach to a lot of many children.
Okay, so that's innovation which is specific to your organization, and I'm trying to understand how this innovation can be broad-based. How can the ecosystem change? What perhaps should organizations like yourself, what perhaps should young people who maybe are interested in the space, or entrepreneurs who are watching this interview to say, I also want to make a difference, what should be some of those immediate steps that need to happen for the quality of education to really change?
So I think the first step is that we need to broaden our mindsets, because somewhere or the other we have this thing that if we send a child to a private school, that's only going to be a game changer, and that will lead my child to some IITs or some big institutions of the world.
Sure.
But so that mindset needs to change. We need to have a positive mindset towards the government schools. People should be encouraged to send their children, because unless and until, because there's no questioning of the government school system. So there's no children whose parents don't question. If they don't question, the quality will never improve. So we need to have that kind of discussion in the spheres, and especially the parents need to be brought up to a level where they can question their child's education.
Okay.
For that, they need to understand the importance of education. All those things are linked. If people come into this space and start doing that kind of work, I think things are going to get a lot better.
My last few questions, and I want to talk about fundraising as well. I understand that your revenue model largely comes from grants, but you're also selling your solutions to some schools that can afford to pay for those.
Correct. So largely we were dependent upon grants and funding from institutions and individuals. But recently, when we packaged our Coach Dabba, so we started providing them to low-income private schools, and also so there are two models to it. One, we give them the Coach Dabba, and their students do activities from that. Apart from that, we also train the teachers to make the Coach Dabba, because it is made from local material. So a school which is there into a village, into a local area, the teachers themselves can arrange for material and make it. So we do trainings for that and also charge for that.
So under Game Changers, we essentially talk to companies and businesses that are at the heart of business, which means they are necessarily making money, but they're doing something for societal good. And my question to you is, for anyone who's watching this interview, to say, I would love to be involved in the space of doing good when it comes to the field of education, changing how students are learning. Is it possible to make money?
So if you come with a passion to do certain things for the society, I think for us it was that we didn't keep money as an important thing. But I think nowadays there are a lot of opportunities where people can make money also if they enter into the space, because as you said about technology, there are a lot of technological solutions through which they can make money through that.
Okay, and my last question to you then, you said you were working with the state of UP, for instance, in terms of providing you materials and the Coach Dabbas, etc. What next for you? Anything that you can leave us with? Any other state governments perhaps that you're also in conversation with?
So we are in conversation with Uttarakhand government also. So over there also, through some other partners, we will be probably launching the Coach Dabba program over there.
Okay.
So in some government school, around 13 government schools. So
wish you all the very best, Riddhi.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. Time for a break. Skoll Foundation in focus on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on the show, the Skoll Foundation is in focus. The founder of eBay, Jeffery Skoll, set up the Skoll Foundation in 1999 to channel his philanthropic activities. Today, it has a presence across the world and aims to bring about social change and provides funding and mentorship to individuals and organizations attempting to do the same. Mansi Chouksey brings you this interview.
James, thank you so much for speaking to us on Leaders of Tomorrow. Skoll is an organization which is working with social enterprises all over the world. So tell me more about the purview of the work that Skoll is doing.
So the Skoll Foundation is the philanthropic interests of Jeff Skoll. And Jeff was the first president of eBay and made his money when the company went public. And he took those resources and decided to put some of that into philanthropic giving. We have two primary programs. The one is a global gathering at Oxford each year. It's called the Skoll World Forum on Social Entrepreneurship. It brings together maybe 500 or 600 social entrepreneurs from all around the globe, a few hundred funders, academics, media, to think about what does it take to build companies or organizations that can drive large-scale social change. And we come together every year. And then our primary grant making or investment program is called the Skoll Awards for Social Entrepreneurship. And so each year we select 4 to 6 organizations from around the world.
Since we're talking about Skoll Awards, I want to expand more on this.
Yeah.
So basically Skoll Foundation every year is giving out grants of about $40 million. What is your screening process? How do you select that which social enterprise do you want to invest in?
So each year, like I said, we select 4 to 6 organizations for the Skoll Award, and that comes with $1,500,000 in unrestricted core support to those organizations. It's given over a 3-year period, but then we track their progress for at least a decade, seeing are these organizations having an effect in the primary systems that they're trying to shift. If it's an education organization, are they getting the kind of educational outcomes that they've promised, and are they seeing those expand to more and more places? If it's a health organization, are they defeating under 5 mortality, and is that expanding nationwide? So in each case, we are trying to identify organizations that have that promise, a very high promise for driving large-scale systems change.
So Skoll Foundation is collaborating with other organizations to work on projects such as Audacious and Co-Impact. I want to understand more about this collaborative philanthropy.
So if you just think of our purpose, it's to drive large-scale social change. $1 million, $2 million, $3 million at a time, we're never going to solve at the size of these problems. And so what we've been doing is saying, how do we leverage our capital and the work that we've done to identify excellent organizations? How do we work with other funders and have more of a contributive approach where we don't control everything, we don't get credit for everything, but we work together in a collaborative way. We've been working with a group of other funders, including Gates and Rockefeller and the Nilekani family here, to start Co-Impact, which is a pooled fund that makes collective decisions about a group of organizations that will fund together. And one of those, in the first round of grantees, is Pratham, which has taken their Teaching at the Right Level program and expanded it beyond India to work in a number of African countries alongside JPEL. Another one is Project ECHO, which is operating much of its work here in India. So 2 Indian organizations have gotten some of the initial funding from Co-Impact. This kind of outsized thinking in philanthropy is a real trend that we're seeing. You know, we've heard about, or perhaps you've heard about, the MacArthur Foundation starting something called 100 and Change. And this week here in Mumbai, we've had the winners of 100 and Change, which are Sesame Street International has been represented here. And we see this trend where philanthropists are teaming up together, and I even think of what Daswa is doing to try to increase collaboration between philanthropists. It happens in recognition that the kind of change we want to see is far beyond the reach of any one organization, that we're not going to do it alone. And so that's what Skoll's a part of.
So what are the projects that Skoll is investing here in India?
Yeah, so some recent Skoll awardees that are based here in India include Educate Girls, include Breakthrough, include Selco, and then we have a history of supporting organizations here like Pratham, like Barefoot College. And what we've identified, I think just like we have in many places in the world, that there are organizations that have developed a product or service and they have identified a value equation, some way where they're either reducing costs as they scale. So if Educate Girls is reaching 20,000 schools now, as they reach 30,000 schools, then the cost per child to reach an additional child goes down over time.
What more can be done when it comes to channeling CSR funds and organizing them? Because at this moment of time, CSR is very scattered in India.
The current approach, as I understand it, again, I'm not an expert on Indian philanthropy or CSR here, is often to pay for inputs. So the number of girls who are provided with the school uniform, the number of children who are provided with a book or a library, that's an input. but what we really want is outcomes. Can you achieve a 90% enrollment rate and retention rate for an entire district or an entire state? And can you retain that over multiple years? And can the government take that on as their responsibility over time? Can you work alongside government and not be in an adversarial relationship or have a parallel system? And so I think that there's a lot that the philanthropic community and the CSR community here can do, but it's going to take collaborating together.
According to the latest India Philanthropy report by Bain, the foreign funding when it comes to philanthropic projects has reduced considerably in India. What are the factors behind this, and how can this issue be resolved?
I think it was like a 4% reduction in giving. So the thing that I would push for is an improvement on that curve, right? Whether it's an overall reduction in the number of people giving or the rupees that are being granted. To me, it's less important how much is being given and more important as to whether it's being given strategically. Is this money tied to outcomes or is it tied to inputs?
What advice would you give to any budding social entrepreneurs here in India? How can they start and how can they achieve maximum results when it comes to social innovation and creating an impact?
So the first thing I would suggest to anyone who's interested in having a career in social impact is to apprentice with the problem. So don't start with a belief that you understand the challenges that rural girls face or that a pregnant woman in a slum faces. Go and spend time at an organization that's already addressing that. Get proximal to the beneficiary, understand with empathy their perspective so that you're not building an organization or an innovation that's just based on your notion of what the problem is. The second thing is to landscape. Understand what approaches have been tried. Maybe there's someone who's already doing great work and you could go team up with them. You know, a frequent assumption that I see among social entrepreneurs is that they're solving a problem for the first time or that they're bringing an innovative solution when actually lots of people have been trying to address these deep-seated, ill-structured social problems. And then I would say think about results at scale and build an organization that's driven towards impact at scale, not just on scaling your organization. What is it going to take to achieve large-scale social impact?
Thank you so much for speaking with us.
It's been great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, that's all we could pack into the show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, here's how you get in touch. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. You can also reach us on Twitter, Sunanda_Jain, LOT_ET Now, and Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now on Facebook. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.